There is a specific kind of quiet that exists in the Arizona desert at 3 in the morning. It is a silence that feels heavy, almost expectant. On the night of January 31st, 2025, that silence was occupied by an 84-year-old grandmother named Nancy Guthrie. She was a woman of routine, of faith, and of deep family ties. The kind of person who didn't just live in her community, but was woven into its very fabric. But as the clock turned over into the early hours of February 1st, that fabric didn't just tear, it was violently shredded. I have spent weeks tracing the digital breadcrumbs left behind in the Catalina Foothills. When you look at this case from the outside, it looks like a tragedy. When you look at it from the inside, through the lens of timestamps and forensic data, it looks like a calculated operation. We are told Nancy was dropped off at 9:50 p.m. by her son-in-law, Tommaso Tioni. We are told the garage door closed, the locks clicked, and the world went dark. But the data tells a story that the neighbors never heard. At 1:47 a.m., the heartbeat of the home, the Nest doorbell camera, was manually severed. It didn't glitch. It didn't lose Wi-Fi. It was silenced by a hand that knew exactly where to reach. 25 minutes later, at 2:12 a.m., the system's back-end software detected a presence, a shadow. But because the camera had been crippled, there is no video, only the cold binary confirmation that someone or something was moving through the house. And then, the most haunting detail of all, 2:28 a.m. This is the moment Nancy Guthrie's pacemaker app lost its connection to her phone. In the medical world, this happens when a device moves too far from its base. In a criminal investigation, it marks the exact second an 84-year-old woman was removed from the only place she felt safe. Why did this person wait nearly 4 hours after she was dropped off to strike? Why was there no sound of a struggle reported by the nearby houses? And, most importantly, how did a masked intruder know that the 84-year-old mother of a national news icon would be alone, vulnerable, and without her life-saving medication that night? The police tell us to look for a stranger. The evidence, however, forces us to look much closer to home. We are entering a maze of impounded vehicles, FBI raids, and a man caught on camera walking backward into the shadows of a mystery that is only just beginning to unravel. When the FBI's Operational Technology Division began their forensic sweep of the neighborhood's digital footprint, they weren't just looking for the night of the crime, they were looking for a pattern. And what they found was a sequence of events that suggests Nancy Guthrie wasn't just a target of opportunity. She was being studied. 14 days before she disappeared, a neighbor's camera captured a figure moving near an intersection leading to Nancy's home. This individual wasn't jogging or walking a dog. He was moving in reverse, a tactic often used by those attempting to keep their face out of a camera's fixed field of vision. It is a detail that changes the entire complexion of the case, shifting it from a sudden abduction to a premeditated hunt. But the intruder left behind a signature that he likely thought was anonymous. On the night of February 1st, he was caught on Nancy's porch wearing a very specific piece of gear, a black 25-liter Ozark Trail hiker pack. To the casual observer, it's just a backpack. To the FBI, it's a direct link to a point of purchase. This specific model is sold almost exclusively through Walmart. Investigators are currently scrubbing months of transaction records and surveillance video from every Walmart in the Tucson area, looking for the person who bought that bag. They are looking for a male, roughly 5'9" to 5'10", each with an average build, a description that fits thousands of people. but only one who was standing on that porch with a holstered weapon at 1:47 a.m. To get that height estimate, the FBI didn't just guess. They erected a massive white tent over Nancy's front entrance to recreate the exact lighting conditions of that night. Using laser equipment that can measure to the centimeter, they placed stand-ins on the porch to match the perpetrator's movements against the original nest footage. They were looking for more than just height. They were looking for the gait, the way the man moved. A body language expert who reviewed the footage noted something chilling. The intruder moved with zero emotion, navigating the property with the familiarity of someone who had walked those grounds before. He knew where the camera was, he knew how to disable it, and he knew exactly how much time he had before the house fell silent. While the FBI was measuring the porch, the Pima County Sheriff's Department was 2 miles away, in a desolate field near the roadside. There, they found a single glove. It wasn't one of the blue latex gloves used by technicians. It was a glove that appeared to match the pair worn by the man in the video. The DNA recovered from that glove belonged to an unknown male. But when it was run through CODIS, the National Criminal Database, the result came back as a no match. This tells us that whoever took Nancy Guthrie has likely never been arrested for a major crime. He is a ghost in the system, a man who has managed to stay under the radar until the moment he stepped into the infrared light of a doorbell camera in the Catalina Foothills. But as the search for this ghost continues, the investigation is circling back to the people who were with Nancy just hours before she vanished. Specifically, a blue Honda CR-V belonging to her son-in-law, Tommaso Cioni, and her daughter, Annie. The sheriff has been quick to clear the family as suspects, calling the public's focus on them cruel. And yet, that vehicle remains in police custody. It is being processed for DNA, for fingerprints, and for something even more modern. AirTag pings. There is a theory, whispered in investigative circles, that the kidnapper didn't follow Nancy home. He followed the car. And if he did, the evidence of that digital stalking might be the only thing left to find her. As the first week of February bled into the second, the investigation took a turn that felt ripped from a high-stakes thriller. Multiple ransom notes began appearing, not in Nancy Guthrie's mailbox, but in the inboxes of major news outlets. One letter, sent to TMZ, claimed Nancy was safe but scared and aware of the demands being made for her life. The price for her return? $6 million in Bitcoin. The deadline was set for 5 p.m. on Monday, February 9th. It was a moment of agonizing tension for the Guthrie family, a choice between a potential trap and the only hope of seeing their mother again. Savannah and her siblings didn't hesitate. They publicly stated they would pay. But as the deadline ticked closer, the public Bitcoin ledger remained stubbornly empty. No transfer was made because the one thing the kidnappers never provided was the one thing the family needed: proof of life. While the world watched the crypto wallets, the FBI was working a different angle. They arrested a man in California named Derek Kalela, who had been sending fake ransom texts to Nancy's daughter Annie and her husband Tommaso. It was a cruel exploitation of a family's grief. A sideshow that forced investigators to divert precious resources away from the actual search. This is the reality of a high-profile case. For every real lead, there are a dozen predators trying to cash in on the chaos. By February 24th, with no credible contact from the actual abductors, the Guthrie family made their biggest move yet. They bypassed the standard $100,000 FBI reward and put up $1 million of their own money. It wasn't just a reward. It was a siren song intended to make someone in the kidnapper's inner circle break their silence. On February 26th, exactly 25 days after Nancy vanished, a sudden surge of activity at her home reignited the media firestorm. A convoy of vehicles arrived, and federal prosecutors were seen entering the property. In the world of criminal law, prosecutors don't usually visit a scene unless they are preparing for a grand jury or a specific set of charges. They spent hours in the backyard, focusing on the area around the pool and the perimeter fence. Former FBI agents watching the footage noted that this final sweep often happens right before a case moves from a search to a prosecution. The house, once a sanctuary, had been returned to the family twice and then reclaimed by the feds. It was as if the walls were holding a secret that the forensic teams were determined to squeeze out. But then came the announcement that felt like a gut punch to those following the case. On Friday, the February 27th, the Pima County Sheriff's Department announced they were scaling back. The hundreds of officers who had been scouring the desert were being returned to their regular posts. The FBI began moving its primary operations back to the Phoenix headquarters. In the sterile language of law enforcement, they called it a refocusing of resources. To everyone else, it sounded like the case was going cold. The leads from the glove were gone. The backpack purchase was a dead end. And the $1 million reward, while massive, had yet to produce the one tip that mattered. The investigation was entering a new, quieter phase, one where the truth would likely be found in a database, not a desert wash. While the boots on the ground were searching the desert washes, the analysts at the FBI's Operational Technology Division were building a digital skeleton of a ghost. By using the less than 60 seconds of footage from Nancy's porch, they were able to extract a biometric signature known as a Gait analysis. This isn't just about how tall a person is, it's about the unique physics of how they move, the swing of the arms, the pressure on the heels, the slight tilt of the pelvis. The experts found something interesting in the way this intruder walked. It wasn't the confident stride of a professional operative, nor was it the aimless wandering of a desperate amateur. It was a rhythmic, a deliberate pace that suggested the subject was compensating for a heavy load, possibly the weight of a person. This brings us to the piece of evidence that has caused the most friction between the public and the police: the blue Honda CR-V. For weeks, the Pima County Sheriff's Department has insisted that Nancy's family are victims, not suspects. Yet, as of late February 2026, that vehicle remains in a government lab. Why? If the family is cleared, why is their primary mode of transportation still being held as part of the investigation? One chilling theory emerging from forensic circles involves digital hitchhikers. In modern stalking cases, perpetrators often use AirTags or similar GPS tiles to track their targets. If a tracker was placed on that CR-V, it would have given the kidnapper a live map of Nancy's movements every time she left her house with her daughter and son-in-law. The car isn't just a vehicle, it's a potential data mine for every location it touched in the weeks leading up to January 31st. But the CR-V isn't the only vehicle of interest. Investigators have been canvassing neighbors for ring footage from two very specific windows: January 11th and the morning of the abduction. On January 11th, 3 full weeks before Nancy vanished, a gray truck was seen idling near her property for nearly 20 minutes. No one got out. No one went to the door. It just sat there, its headlights cut, a shadow against the curb. Was this the scouting phase? Detectives are now desperate to identify that truck, believing it may be the link between the man walking backward and the masked figure on the porch. They are looking for a connection that bridges the gap between a quiet suburban street and the organized force required to make an 84-year-old woman disappear without a sound. The physical description released by the FBI is intentionally broad, but the details they didn't emphasize are the ones that keep investigators up at night. Close-up analysis of the infrared frames suggests the suspect may have dark facial hair, possibly a mustache, and what some body language experts describe as manicured eyebrows. This has led to a flurry of tips, over 18,000 to date, ranging from local sightings to international theories. But as the Pima County Sheriff faces mounting scrutiny for his handling of the evidence, including allowing reporters near blood droplets on the porch before they were fully processed, the window for a clean arrest is closing. The ghost in the Ozark Trail backpack is still out there, and he knows exactly how much of a head start he has. For a few hours on the night of February 10th, it looked like the mystery of Nancy Guthrie was finally over. 60 miles south of Tucson, in the small border town of Rio Rico, the Pima County Sheriff's Department and the FBI executed a high-risk traffic stop. They pulled over a man named Carlos, a local delivery driver, and detained him for questioning. Simultaneously, federal agents in tactical gear descended on a nearby home, executing a court-authorized search warrant that lasted until the early hours of the morning. The neighborhood was paralyzed. Reporters flocked to the scene, believing they were about to witness the recovery of the 84-year-old mother of a national icon. It was the most significant move since the abduction began, a moment where the ghost seemed to finally have a face. But as the sun rose over Rio Rico, the breakthrough dissolved. Carlos was released. He told reporters that investigators had stopped him because an anonymous tip claimed his eyes matched the masked figure in the Nest footage. He had been delivering DoorDash, but a man just trying to make a living, who suddenly found himself at the center of a federal kidnapping probe. The FBI's evidence response team left the home with several bags of electronics, but the smoking gun never materialized. This is the danger of a $1 million reward. It generates thousands of tips, but it also creates a frenzy where the innocent can be caught in the crossfire of a desperate search. The Rio Rico lead didn't find Nancy, though it only highlighted how thin the evidence truly was. Today, February 28, 2026, marks 4 weeks since Nancy Guthrie was taken. The investigation is entering its most difficult phase. The FBI has officially moved its command post back to Phoenix. The Pima County Sheriff has scaled back the hundreds of officers who once combed the foothills, returning the case to a small group of dedicated detectives. Savannah Guthrie, after a month of tireless searching in the Arizona heat, is reportedly preparing to return to New York. In her most recent message, her voice was different, no longer just pleading, but reflecting. She spoke of blowing on the embers of hope, but she also acknowledged a reality no child wants to face, that her mother may already be with the Lord she loved. The man who walked backward is still out there. The 25-liter backpack and the unknown DNA on a discarded glove remain the only physical links to a crime that has captivated a nation. If Nancy Guthrie was targeted because of her daughter's fame, or if she was the victim of a calculated professional abduction, the truth is now buried in 10,000 hours of surveillance footage and digital pings. We are no longer looking for a miracle in the desert. We are looking for the one person who knows where the silence ends. Because, until Nancy comes home, every ring camera in the Catalina Foothills is just a witness to a secret that refuses to be told.